Hi everyone, we are from Group D5. Today we are going to interview Mr. Dilanka Jinadasa, who is a successful leader in apparel sector. He has appointed as the Executive Director at Foundation Garment in 2012 and he has become the Group CEO at Hello Clothing in 2016. Since 2016, he has been working as Group CEO at Hello Clothing, and also he has been working as the non-executive director at Fan Asia Power PLC. So, without wasting much time, we'll start the discussion with Mr. Dilanka Jinadasa.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi, Mr. Dilanka.
Sorry, I had to sit back earlier. Got a little late.
Right. I think Chanaka's mic is
Chanaka,
you're on mute. You're on mute. Chanaka, you're on mute.
How can I help you guys?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Dilanka. Actually, nice to have a meeting with you. We have a couple of questions scheduled today. So, first of all, we are going to ask you some question. First question. So, can you give 3 words to describe you, along with a brief explanation as to why you say so? That's our first question.
Okay. 3 words. I think one thing is perseverance. So basically, I strongly believe in never giving up, right? So like, especially when it comes to work, I always like a challenge, and I like working in companies or acquiring companies that are not doing well. So that what I've noticed in my short career is that the equation to fix companies like distressed companies or companies which are struggling performance wise, a lot of the equations are the same. They are going wrong, or they are not performing due to very similar, or they show very similar symptoms. So when you have gone through multiple sectors or multiple companies and turning them around, you know which areas to look and which areas to fix. So that improves your odds of turning around a company. So, but to do that, you need to have perseverance. In the sense, Amila, like you have to expect bad news.
Yes.
Right? You have to expect that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. But you shouldn't get emotionally stressed when things go wrong. You look at the problem, you break the problem into, again, I have a very short experience, but in the last 10 years, what I've seen is you take a problem, you should be able to break it into 2, 3 smaller problems. And those smaller problems are very easy to address. But if you look at all the problems as one problem, you can emotionally stress yourself and give up. Right? You won't be able to address it. So that's why I said perseverance, because a lot of people think entrepreneurship is very easy. It's not. And everybody thinks, if you are an entrepreneur, you can, go to work at any time. It's very relaxing and things like that. Which is not the case, because everybody constantly comes to you with bad news. The good news never comes to you. And you have to expect that. And when you get the bad news, you have to see, okay, what action do you take to solve the problem. And I think one more thing, if you ask me from my approach, is that I try to empathetic in the sense that I try to understand it from the other person's standpoint. right? Because when you look at, rather than always seeing what you want, you try to understand what the other person wants, and that person can be the seller, person can be the buyer, that can be your customer or your employee. You have to understand, okay, what do they want? They call it what's in it for me syndrome, right? What's in it for me? If you're an employee, okay, what do I want, right? So if you try to look at it from their view, their perspective, it's much easier, because then you're like, okay, these are the problems. If I take a colleague, okay, these are the problems that is holding that colleague back from performing. Then how do I solve those? Okay, one aspect can be money, one aspect can be, the home condition or personal stress that person is going through. So then if you give answers to those, then okay, when that person comes to work, he or she is going to come with a free mind, right? Then the chance of that person performing will be much higher. So if you look at it, if you approach work or the world, even in your personal life, in that view, you will never go wrong, in my opinion. I think empathy in every sense is quite useful.
It's actually you said that you are very empathetic, and as long as like you try to break the questions into like small problems and then look into what's the root causes. And so in order to think like that, in order to work like that, like who inspired you to become the person who you actually like? Do you have like a role model, maybe your parents or someone from global perspective, like some sort of person that inspired you or maybe you follow in terms of your career?
Yeah, I think a lot of people inspire me, starting with my parents. He taught me a lot of things that I know today. And he brought us up in an environment that brought us our characteristics, right? My father and mother. My colleagues are an inspiration every day, because I like having, like, if you look at my direct team, right? People who report directly to me, I try to make sure that they are the smartest people. If I have a meeting with them, I try to make sure that they are the smartest people in the room, right? So that I am always challenged to keep up with them, not the other way around. If I'm the dumbest person in the room, that means I have hired well and I have a good team.
Yeah.
And then my job is to then, okay, if I have 5 people in the room and they're giving me advice, I take everyone's advice and then decide, okay, this is the way we should go. So my colleagues, inspire me every day. And then, there are also other business leaders, I mean, there are some very successful. I don't think we need to look at US or Europe. I think there are very good, successful business leaders from Sri Lanka, from India, from Asia. People like even Dhammika Pereira to Ishara Nanayakara to even Ashok Patrige. I think those guys are amazing for what they have achieved there, because these are not businesses that they inherited. They built it from scratch, right? Especially guys like Ashok Patrige and Dhammika. So, seeing them, reading books about from written or, like autobiographies, like everything inspires me. So, and it's nice that way.
Yeah.
Okay. With that given inspiration and all, so could you please elaborate on your key milestones of your journey, sir?
It's funny with milestones when it comes to work, because the goalpost keeps going back, right? You want to achieve one size, and when you're coming close to that number, you want to be even bigger or even better. And first you want to be number one in Sri Lanka, then you want to be number one in Asia, then you want to be number one. There's no end. Then you want to be number one in the world. I'll tell you one of the coolest milestones is that when I started in the apparel sector, right? The company called Foundation Garments, which is what we still run, but now it's branded as Heller. It's interesting because when I came, only one person came by car. The whole company had about 35 people in office. various levels. And now we have a car park of about 8 years later. We have a car park of about 130 cars. And for me, and still we don't have enough car park. People are still complaining, right? So, we have about 150, 200 people or more who come by car. And 8 years ago, it was only one person who came by car. And for me, that's a major milestone that, we built a company that helped people to move up personally. Or, we built a company where good people wanted to work with us. So for me, and then we went from 35 people to now, we are 15,000 people now. We are affecting people in so many different ways. And that's another major milestone. And another big milestone for us was when we started 8 years ago, the business was doing about 450 million rupees a year, and last year we hit 40 billion. And that's within 8 years, took it from 400 million to 40 billion. So I think milestones change. I don't think too much about milestones, and my focus of milestones has also changed. Maybe earlier it was how big you are and all that. And I'm not trying to sound like a charity person, or I'm not trying to be like Mother Teresa or something like that. But for me, it's like a great milestone for me, Hasini, is if I'm the highest paying employer in the country, right? That is a huge milestone where I can proudly say, hey, my company pays the most for my employees. That's my dream milestone. Because last thing I want to say is that my company was the most profitable by, effectively screwing the little guy. I can't, if I said, okay, my company is making millions, but I'm only paying minimum wage to the person who's really creating everything, right? In our industry, we are stitching, right? If you are not taking care of them, but I'm showing millions, but I'm only paying, minimum wage. For me, that's failure. And that's not because, again, like I said, I'm not trying to sound like a charity, but I think that's a failed business model. Where the big guy screws the little guy, and the pie is so uneven, right? So if my biggest milestone would be the day I can say we have, in the case of Hella, I say I have a Hella minimum wage, right? And my minimum wage is 50,000 rupees, right? Anybody who works in my company will be making 50,000 rupees, whether you are a person who sweeps or the team member, like the machine operator, to the security guard. It doesn't matter. We are paying a minimum of 50,000. And the day I achieve that is the day I know, okay, as far as Hella is concerned, that is my only milestone. And honestly, I think that's just smart business. Like I said earlier, the day you take care of your team, they will take care of the team will take care of the company, right? So I think to answer your question in short, I would say that would be my main milestone.
Yeah, most of the milestones are in future, no?
Exactly. So that's it. I mean, like I'm a long way away, but like I think again, to give you an example, we were the only company who didn't cut anyone's salaries COVID in the parent space. Right? And the government said, you can pay the minimum wage of 14,500. We paid the full salary, and we also paid bonuses for them, like a COVID bonus to, so that they have money to buy food and everything. And okay, but you look at our results today. I mean, touch wood, like I would say our results are probably one of the best in the industry now. But why? Because when things were really bad in March, April, we took care of the people. And now when the things are getting better, the people are taking care of the company, right? So you show that everyone wants to be a partner when times are good, right? You don't need partners when times are good. There are enough people. you need real support when times are bad. So if you are there when times are bad, that will go a long way. And that's, I think, something I learned a few times.
Mr. Dilanka, just a quick question. Like this is derouting the way that we talk, but interesting to know that like let's say you have said that you paid like your employees the full salaries, and instead of that also on top of that you have given a bonus during COVID. Like, is there anything specific that you did in terms of the business, the nature of the business, like whereas like you were able to do that, or like did you diversify into something else?
Very good question. Very good question. So, I mean, a lot of people went into PPE, right? The personal protective equipment. A lot of people went. So did we. We shipped, I think, close to about 24 million masks to the US and Europe within the first 2 months. Yeah. So I don't think that was anything unique because the whole world moved into that. We were forced to move into it. But remember how I was saying empathy, like if you look at things from their perspective, you solve their problems and they will help to solve. So I think what happened is, Niroshan, because we didn't cut salaries and we maintained everything and we paid bonuses, when people came to work, they had a clear mind. Yeah. They didn't have to think, how am I going to pay my car lease? How am I going to pay my credit card bill? How am I going to, what my parents' health care or whatever, right? So they had a free mind. So we came up with new clothing, right? So we put a special chemical on our clothing, which made it antivirus. We call it antimicrobial. So people in India to Europe and the US, they wanted to start buying it because they are like, okay, I feel safer with this, right? So, and then like we came up with things like, okay, say you have a hoodie, with the zip here. When you pull the zip up, you can pull the zip up all the way up to your nose so that you have a mask in your hoodie. You don't have to carry a separate mask, right? So came up with that. So we came up with different things that helped us to build sales. And I think one reason, I mean, of course, we've got a very talented team. I'm very lucky to have that. But I think the fact that they had a clear mind, they were not stressed when they came to work, helped them to think out of the box and come up with a solution. And so we went into lockdown end of March. By May, we were full again. All our factories were full. When, still people are not full. There are some factories that are still running with open capacity. They say Bangladesh is running at 35% capacity, right? And Bangladesh is a $35 billion business and we are a $5 billion business, right? So their open capacity is about 3-4 times the size of Sri Lanka's industry. So for us to be full, that we must have done something different and something unique to see through it, right? So, and I think a lot of that came down to the foundational decisions that we took in March to support the guys, and then they had the free mind to just perform.
Cool. Thank you very much. It's very interesting to know.
Thanks, Mr. Dilanka. Our next question is about challenges. We know that challenges and make and grow the people, stronger the people. So what are the challenges that you have faced in your career?
Yeah. If you take Hella went through a lot of challenges. In 2015, Hella got some new shareholders, some prominent people in the industry. And they did a lot of good things. Brought in good people, upgraded the factories, infrastructure, brought in technology. But our strategy was wrong. Our strategy was to be the biggest and to be the biggest very quickly. There's no point being the biggest, right? You have to be the best. Because there's no point saying, the biggest player is having $900 million in sales and I'm doing $1 billion in sales. If the guy who's doing 900 million is making more profit, what's the point, right? If the 900 million guy or 100 million guy is taking care of the people better, what's the point, right, of being the biggest? So our strategy was wrong. So we were taking a lot of decisions to grow really fast, which put the business in a spin. So we started making a lot of losses. We started, people started leaving the company. We had a lot of loans. So the banks were putting a lot of pressure saying to pay back the loans much before it was due. So like say a 5-year loan, they wanted it paid within 3 months, stuff like that. And when you're losing money as a business, that becomes even more difficult, right? And to a point where we were taking loans to fund the loss. So it was very, very challenging. So on one side, the banks were not supporting naturally because we were losing money. We couldn't pay suppliers, so we couldn't get raw materials, our fabric and all that. They were always holding back their shipments, saying, "Okay, until you pay, I'm not going to release." Then when your fabric and your raw materials are late, you're late to your customer. Then the customer gets upset and they start charging penalties. So there was a lot of challenges. But on one side, you're managing the customer who you need to keep happy, and you need the money from the customer to pay the supplier, but then you don't have enough money to pay the supplier because you have to pay the bank and the bank is holding. So that time period of about 2 years, that's about 2016 to 2018, was very challenging. It was a lot of stress, but we stuck it through. 2019 was the best year we had in our 30-year history. So we had a major turnaround, and believe it or not, we are doing better. Hopefully, we are hoping to finish 2020, even better than 2019, even after COVID. So, like I said, once you right at the start, I said the steps you take for any business to turn around, it's the same. It's very similar buttons you have to push. So when once we figured out in 2018, these are the things we need to change. When the issues came in 2020, when COVID came, we knew, okay, these are the decisions we have to take. Let's take it and manage it. So I think Hella in 2000, to answer your question, I think Hella in 2016 to 18 was the most challenging time period for me.
Thanks, Dilanka.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dilanka. You explained a lot of challenges you have met during the period. Can you explain briefly that how you get the employee engagement in decision making to overcome those challenges you mentioned earlier?
Yeah. So I think the real secret to employee engagement is honesty and transparency, right? Good or bad, tell the truth, right? And show all your numbers, because once they understand the position the company is in, they are going to partner, right? Because it can go either way. Like say, sometimes the company might be doing bad, but you are not communicating with your employees, right? So sometimes they think the company is doing better than it is. So then they're like, okay, why am I not getting the increment? Why am I not getting a bonus? Why are they declining my, capex request? Why are they not approving my travel? But you can't blame them because they don't know the true picture, right? So what we did was we communicated very transparently and very honestly. So what we did was, Umani, every 3 months, every quarter, we invited everyone and we showed our entire profit and loss statement. Right? We showed this is our budget, this is how much we hit, this was our cost for the management, this was our cost for raw materials, this was our cost for travel, officers, and this is the loss we made this quarter, right? But this is our target for the next quarter, and basically the next 3 quarters we would give a projection and say, look, this is the plan and this is how we are going to do it. And then, when we made a profit together for the first quarter, everybody was happy because they felt like, hey, this was also due to the work I did, right? So I think when you communicate constantly with your team, and you communicate in an honest way, your employee engagement is going to come. When they know the company is not doing well, or when the company is going through a challenge, or even if the company is doing well, they know what's happening and they know what to request. And that will just lead a very satisfied employee engagement.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Dilanka, I have a small question.
So we all know that you have been a leader. So you are currently the CEO of Hello Clothing. So when you are like doing your stuff as a CEO or a manager, so you have to make decisions every day. So what is the most difficult decision that you have to make?
Difficult decisions. I don't think I've had too many difficult decisions because like I said, you try to simplify your difficult decisions, right? So then you try, you don't see it as a difficult situation. But I think the most difficult conversation I had was so in 2016, like I said, when we had to let go of people because we were losing so much money. I spoke to a lot of them personally. And it was difficult for me because I felt like these are people who left their jobs to join us, and we failed them because of the mistakes we did. And it was very disheartening. It was a very difficult conversation. I knew always that I have, sometimes you have to sacrifice 100 people to save 15,000. So it is a numbers game. So I always, it wasn't difficult because I understood the bigger picture, but it was firing someone is a very difficult conversation, especially when you have to fire them due to the mistakes you've made, not because of the mistakes that person has made. So I would say that would be my most difficult.
Yes, Dilanka. Thank you for your answer, Dilanka. Dilanka.
So I have a significant question. As you know that values and business ethics are at the core of any organization system.
Yeah.
So which values do you think are embedded in Hello Clothing culture?
Honestly, comes back to empathy. If you feel the problem, true problem. I'll give you an example, right? So we are in Kenya, right? We have now almost 6,000 people. Sorry, we have almost 5,000 people in Kenya, and we have about 2,500 people in Ethiopia now. So when we went to Kenya and we started, finding people that work is very easy because there's large populations. Right? Ethiopia has 100 million people, Kenya has 50 million people, huge unemployment. So people want jobs also. So when we started the factory during lunch break, Ishara, we saw that people would just keep their head on the sewing machine and they would sleep, right? So we asked them, why are they sleeping during lunch break? Are they tired from are they partying in the night? Are they staying up in the night? Are they doing another job that night? Why are they sleeping during lunch break? And they said, no, it's because they don't have money to eat, right? They have money to eat one meal, and that's the one they eat with the family when they go home at night. And like I said, there's so much unemployment. You don't need to do things to bring them to come to work. Just a salary is enough, right? So what we did was we said we are giving free meals to everybody, right? We found out that our employees walk on average 7 kilometers every day to get water, right? We gave free water to everybody to take home, right? To date, we have given over 6 million liters of water to our employees. And again, comes down, okay, now they come, they eat. So naturally, when you're not hungry at work, you're going to work better, right? When you know that, okay, when I go home in the evening, I don't need to walk 7 kilometers to get water for my family, you're less tired in the night. And naturally, you're less tired in the morning when you come to work. So our efficiencies in Kenya are through the roof, right? Like our average efficiency in Kenya and in our industry, efficiency is everything, right? I'll give you an idea. Our lines in Kenya are running at about 75-80% efficiency. But in Sri Lanka, we're running at about 65-70% efficiency. right? But Kenya is only 4 years old, and Sri Lanka has been running for nearly 30 years. And that's because, okay, these guys, and the main reason for that is, we measure what we call labor turnover, right? How much of your workers leave every month, right? Now in Sri Lanka, in the industry, you lose about 5% of your workforce every month. So at the end of the year, you have lost 60% of your workforce. So you're constantly training. In Kenya, in Africa, for us, we are losing about 0.8% a month. Why? Because, of course, the country conditions, but also because they know, hey, if I work at Hella, I can get my water sorted, I get my meals, we give free childcare, so I can bring my kids to the factory without, having to worry about where do I leave my kids. So because less people leave, so when we train them, that training cost, they just keep getting better and better. Whereas in other countries, they leave and you're training somebody else. And then they leave and you're training somebody else. But imagine training the same person over the years. Naturally, you're going to be so much better at your job, right? So we are seeing major success through that initiative. So if we thought, okay, look, we can save a few $100,000 by not giving them meals because anyway they need the job, they'll come to work, versus by giving that, spending that $100,000, you're maybe making $1 million. But also at the same time, you're solving that person's problem as well, right? So I think if you, as I keep emphasizing, empathy or looking at business that way or looking at your personal life, approaching your personal life in that way will never go wrong. And you don't have to be a charity. It's a very smart business move to approach business that way.
Thank you, Mr. Dilanka. So we have the next question. We can see a stiff competition in the apparel sector, globally as well as locally in Sri Lanka. So how do you use technology and innovation in creating your business value?
Right. So we try to use technology in two ways, right? In one way, we try to use technology to be faster and more efficient, right? And I'll give you some examples. And then we use technology on how to be more sustainable, right? So the impact on the environment is less. To give you an example, sometimes, we have what we call a sample room where we make some garments to send to our customer, and they will look at the garment and be like, okay, I like this. I will buy, 10,000 pieces of this. But now we use technology. So we use 3D designing, right? So you make the entire garment in the computer where it shows like a heat map also, right? So it shows you like an avatar of a person. It shows, okay, this t-shirt is tight here, it's loose here. If you sweat, your sweat will come like this. When you walk, the t-shirt will move like this, or so you simulate all the environments and then you send it to the customer. The customer also looks, and then you send 5. You say, if you send 5 options, the customer will be like, I'll buy option number 3, right? Whereas earlier, you would have had to make 5 samples and courier it to them in the UK, US, or wherever they're sitting. And then maybe from the 5, they might pick 1, or it might even be 0, right? But here, I only have to sample the one they pick from the computer. So our sample requirement came down very heavily. So it saves cost, it makes it faster and more efficient, right? So that's one way that we use technology. The second thing is garments is like the second largest polluter, polluting industry in the world, right? So the most amount of greenhouse gases, most amount of chemicals into water or water usage is very high. So the technology we are using is okay. Now what happens is, say you have a t-shirt, you wear it, and then eventually someone's going to throw it, and it'll go into a landfill or a garbage dump or something. So we are saying, don't throw it. You send it back to us, right? So then we use technology to we shred the t-shirt, right? We repeat, and then we use a chemical to make it back into a pulp. Then the pulp, again, we tweak it and we make a yarn, and from the yarn we make a fabric, and then we make a garment. we call it a circular supply chain, a closed loop solution. So how do you make a yarn into a fabric, into a garment, back into a yarn again? So that so that you're never using new raw materials. You're using the old clothes to make new clothes, and we think that's the solution to the environmental problem the garments industry has. So that's something which we are investing a lot of time and energy in.
Next question is quite different question.
Sure.
What would you change if you are given a chance to go back in time in business terms? What would you change?
What will I change? Honestly,
any decision that you have made or anything like that?
not that I can think of so far. I think it's easy to look back and say that, okay, I wish I didn't make these decisions, like certain business decisions, which didn't go the way we wanted it to go. But I think you learn from it, right? And now you are that much smarter. I think you learn more from mistakes than from success. So I don't think there was many decisions business-wise that I regret, because I feel like the outcome of that wrong decision is much better because I went through that mistake than avoiding that mistake. Yeah, but yeah, personally, I think I have a lot of things to change.
Sometimes so very fascinating to know all the facts and everything. But if you take in Sri Lanka, like most of the people at top level, they are like few generations ahead of us. But compared to you, but in Hela, like we see that the still are like very young at the first stage of your like the career.
Yeah.
So like in terms of someone like wants to be like you, like what sort of advice would you give to that person? Like especially like with the rapid growth at Hela, because taking 400 million to 40 billion in last year, it's a very like I would say like it's a very good milestone in terms of the business context. So if someone wants to follow you, if someone wants to be like you, what sort of advice would you give?
So I look at a few businesses, right? My main one is Hela, where I spend most of my time. I don't know if you've heard of a company called Pan Asian Power, which is in the power sector. It's a listed company, so that's another company that I'm involved with. And then there's like a coffee company that I've invested in called Soul Coffee, which sells coffee, but also does like all the coffees for things like Keels and some of the other, like we call it white labeling manufacturing. So I try to invest in businesses where we are currently importing, but how do we do local substitution, right? How can we grow coffee in Alla and then roast it here and then sell it, as opposed to importing it from Brazil or India or wherever. But any of these businesses, whether it's power, whether it's garments, whether it's FMCG, I know those businesses inside out, right? Like I do a lot of research, I do a lot of reading. I will meet anybody who will meet me or be willing to talk to me to learn everything. What are the margins? Who are the people? Where are the factories? Who is the competition? Who is best? Who is coming up with new technology in this area? What are the again, like say cost margins? I will know everything, so that the day if you take apparel, I can, like I've come to a point, of course, through trial and error and through the years, I can look at this T-shirt again. If I use an example, I can tell you, okay, this is the weight, this is the fabric. This fabric can be bought from these mills at this price. It will take you this many minutes to stitch. These are the quality issues that can come. This is how I will check for the quality. I know it inside out on purpose.
Yes.
That when challenges come, I know how to react to them. A lot of people try to get into a business or try to grow up a career without spending time to master it, and that's where they fail. Because say, this can be a bad example, but say I'll think, okay, you know what, I have some money lying around, let me start a hotel, right? but I don't know anything about running hotels, or I don't know everything about running hotels. If I'm getting into the hotel business, I need to know the hotel business more than the number one hotel operator in the country. Then only I will get in, right? Because I need to know, okay, how can my business be successful when there is competition like this, right? So whether it's your career or your business, my advice is know it inside out. You should know every aspect of it. If you have any free time, spend it on reading, spend it on watching, whether it's a documentary or interview or anything, spend it on talking to people, and make sure that in the industry or in the world, you know it best. That way you will never ever go wrong. You will be sought after because they will be like, go for Niroshan because Niroshan is the number one at this. He knows this inside out. Make sure he's part of your team, right? That's the position you need to get to. If that's on your career, if it's on your business, and if you're starting something, you should know it so that you know this is the market, this is the opportunity, this is the price I need to get at, this is how I'm going to market it, and this is how I'm going to go. Right? You can't play trial and error.
And in terms of like what you, I mean, if you put it in simple words, sort of, we should be able to re-engineer like whatever that you do, sort of.
To re-engineer it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I try to re-engineer all the businesses I'm involved in every day because I have to think like, because every day my biggest panic is somebody's doing something which I'm not doing that's going to beat me.
Yeah.
So how can I do it first?
Yeah, understood.
Every day you have to come thinking, I need to be better than yesterday. My business has to be better. I need to be better. And then how do you have a foundation that will support it? And that's one major advice I'll give you guys is, I'm just talking from personal experience. Every day I will wake up in the morning. I meditate every day at 5:30 in the morning. At 6 I'll hit the gym or get some exercise. And then I spend about an hour watching the news. And then I start work every day, right? Because I try to make sure, okay, my mind is healthy, my body is healthy, and my knowledge is better than what it was the day before, right? So that you have built a foundation that will support you to be the best or to re-engineer.
Yeah. Thank you, Roshan. Chanak, would you like say a few words?
Chanak, I think you're on mute. Can't hear you. Is it just me?
No, we can't hear him.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Dilanka, for having an opportunity for us to talk with you and have a lot of information we could gain today, and a lot of information about the careers development and how you behave in your business, and a lot of information that. Thank you so much, and hope that we could have the interaction with. Rather than having the digitally, but unfortunately because of the COVID we have to interact with you digital media. So thank you so much for that, and on behalf of all our team, thank you once again. Thank you so much, Mr. Dilanka.
No problem. Sorry for delaying it. I wish you guys all the best, and feel free to reach out to me anytime or I can.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.